And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your RBLR Rays show, where we're going to discuss the biggest pitcher signing of this MLB offseason. Erasmo Ramirez being brought back by Tampa Bay Rays, obviously complete blockbuster. I mean, what else is there really to discuss? And here to discuss that very important information with me is Pat Davenport. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I can't believe it. We finally got our guy. We finally brought him back. And if you thought that was a blockbuster, the Rays followed that up with a little under the hood signing that would have blown up on any other news day. But we also brought back Chris Devenski as well.
Amazing. I mean,
an absolute masterclass.
Absolutely making moves, and we're only like we only are kind of kidding because they are good. They are good moves. There was two other mildly interesting moves that happened, which we will discuss later. And if you want to be here for that discussion and you want to hear everything that's going to happen in this discussion and the future discussions that we will have, like, subscribe down there. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe. If you're listening on podcasts, share it out to us. Give us a review on Spotify or whatever platform you're listening to us on. Just let us know how we're doing. DM me on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Let us know how we're doing, and just continue to be a part of this community that we're building. We're building the best Tampa-based sports podcast network that will ever exist, and we thank you guys for being a part of that. We're gonna continue to do our thing, and we're really happy that you guys are along for the ride. Today, we're gonna talk about a couple of players that were a big impact with us. Some of them for longer in the season than others. We're gonna do some player reviews to start it off. Then we're gonna talk a little bit about some of those signings. We also finally found out what the PBTL was in the Vidal Brujan deal from the Marlins. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about bringing back Erasmo Ramirez and Devenski. We are going to discuss the really big stuff because both of those moves do affect the Rays in various ways, and some more than others. And we'll discuss all of that. But to get us started, we're going to talk about three players today. We're going to do a triple feature on our player reviews this week, starting with Jeffrey Springs. When I say the name Jeffrey Springs, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, Pat?
The best 16 innings of baseball pitching I have ever seen. Jeffrey Springs was in 2022 brought in and was stretched out from a good reliever when he came over to the Rays. He had a year of good relief and then got stretched into being a kind of 5 and dive, but really good 5 and dive guy. He was the most automatic 5 innings, 1 run allowed guy in baseball in 2022. So the expectations were that he was going to be essentially a full-on, no restriction starter this year. And oh my gosh, the way he started the year, 3 games started, 16 innings pitched, 0.56 ERA, 24 strikeouts, a 0.5 whip in 16 innings. I tell you what, if he came anywhere close to that pace for a season, that would have been the easiest Cy Young Award win of all time. And unfortunately, he just went down really early after just 3 starts, and then that was it. That was curtains. Tommy John kept him for all of 2023. We're expecting him back, hopefully mid 2024. Pam's a fan of Jeffrey Springs.
Pam was really upset when Jeffrey Springs went down. It brought a tear to her eye. She was very sad to see him go for these. And I think all of Rays fandom was. We all had really high expectations. We on this show had really high expectations for him, and were seeming to be proven right to start the season. And all we know is that we were proven right because he was excellent for every single inning he was out there. And really unfortunate to see him go down with injury. We have not heard a whole lot of updates, which generally speaking, with injuries like that, no news is kind of good news. There's been no setbacks of any knowledge that we have. The timeline as we know it would love to see him back by the All-Star break this year as kind of the best case scenario, and we get him as maybe like a piggyback starter for 3 or 4 innings. Maybe he stretches out towards the end of the year. That's kind of best case scenario what we're looking at for him. I don't expect, especially considering he's never been like I'm going to blow you away with my fastball type of guy. I don't really expect Tommy John to like really negatively affect him. I would expect him to be, unless he just like can never get back to full health, which does happen occasionally. But in reality, I really don't expect him to have too much of an issue returning from Tommy John, because most of what makes him great is his pitch shapes, his deception with his pitch location and pitch sequencing, and all the different breaking balls he can throw, and the ways he can tie your head in knots as a hitter. That should not change much despite having gone through Tommy John. And obviously he does have some life on the fastball, and we may see that take a little bit of time to get back, but I don't expect it to be anything massive. I expect once we get around, as long as there are no setbacks, so when we get around to like September, October, we get back to pretty close to what we normally expect from Jeffrey Springs. This isn't a Blake Snell or a Tyler Glasnow or a Shane McClanahan where you're watching the velocity every single time he throws a fastball. You're hoping that it eventually starts to tick back up. It's not really the scenario here. He's not really blowing dudes away for the most part. It's the other things. It's his arsenal that makes him so effective. So I expect to see him, make a full recovery, and it just was a shame that we lost him so early in that last season, and it kind of has affected the way the season has played out, just because of the limitations of the starting rotation once he and the other player we're going to talk about in just a second went down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of set the tone for the rotation where like everyone that did turn up was excellent. They just couldn't stay on the field, and we were absolutely ravaged by injuries all season. It was kind of the story of our 2023. But as long as his changeup still moves like it does, and I don't see a reason why it shouldn't, he's going to still be awesome and blow everyone away. I mean, I think it's unrealistic to expect a 0.56 ERA when he comes back, and also have patience with his innings. The Rays like to be cautious when bringing guys back,
sure.
So don't expect him to turn up and throw 6 innings straight away. He's probably going to turn up, do a once through the order, maybe come after an opener type thing. And maybe by the playoffs, he'll be ready to do full starts on his own. But of course, caution is the watchword with the Rays organization, and also just as a duty of care towards their players. But Jeffrey Springs was amazing in the little time we saw him, and ever since he's come to the Rays, really, he's been absolutely outstanding, and I wish him a speedy recovery, and can't wait to see him hopefully around July, August time next year.
Yep, and I think that's really that's kind of where we are with him right now. It's just hope he gets healthy soon. Hope to see him out there soon. If we're looking at like a grading, the grading perspective back on him, I'm going to say incomplete, because you really can't say. If we're grading just those innings, I mean, it's like an A+++. But I mean, you can't really do that. So it's incomplete. Hopefully to be complete in the future, and really look no further than 2022 if you want to look at what his next year might look like. The inning totals probably won't be the same, but I would imagine it's going to be a similar. It's going to be like 80, 90 innings probably is what I would expect, but probably still pretty good production coming out of him, projecting him forward into next year.
Yeah, absolutely. If I were grading his 2023, I would say you wrote the first like 3 sentences and they were amazing, but then you didn't write the rest of the paper, so I can't really grade it. I'll be like, you know what, hand in the next assignment and we'll give you a grade then.
Yeah. Yep, and we have a very similar, although he pitched a little bit longer, but we have a very similar story to tell with the next guy we're going to do a player review on. That's Drew Rasmussen, another guy who we had really high expectations for, and he was living up to them, throughout the season. When Springs did go down, we kind of turned to Rasmussen and McClanahan and we're like, can you guys carry the load? And he had no trouble doing that. Through 8 starts, he had a 2.62 ERA, 47 strikeouts, only 11 walks, was doing really good things. And it looked like, hey, maybe he's going to be our rock going forward along with McClanahan. And then he goes down as well. Same, and it was really tough as a Rays fan to lose both those guys. And I mean, it was maybe like a span of like 4 or 5 weeks. I think it was the actual like timeline. It was really tough to just, it felt like just get hit again. It was a tough situation to see. And we hope that he also makes a full recovery, but we're kind of in the same situation with Raz as we are with Springs.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, he already kind of, when he came over to the Rays in 2022, he made some drastic adjustments to his pitch mix and how often he used different pitches, and they remained similar-ish. Coming into 2023, he kind of figured himself out as a starter and was kind of just doing that, but over a full season. And he was awesome. He was really, really good. Again, really improved his command, which you love to see. He was excellent at, eliciting soft contact in particular. That's what he's really good at. And the use of a cutter that he introduced in 2022 and continued to use into 2023 was a big reason for that. And just the amount of movement all of his pitches generate and the way they play off of each other is a super effective arsenal for Rasmussen. And the thing I loved most about Drew Rasmussen before he went down was how efficient he was. When we have guys like McClanahan, who in 2023 in particular, was falling into the Blake Snell trap of nibbling a little bit and not finishing off his guys. Rasmussen is just like, listen, I'm going to attack the strike zone. I'm going to get a weak ground ball or a pop-up in the first 3 pitches of an AB and work really quickly through all of the lineup, which was, for me, it's the funnest style of pitching to watch. Strikeouts are fun, and the Blake Snell style, the McClanahan style of just blowing stuff by people with wipeout stuff is fun. But I love that kind of efficient, I don't care how I get him. I'm just going to get quick outs always. That's what I loved about Rasmussen. And again, it's just a shame that he went down, because I think if he didn't go down, he would have racked up a ton of innings for the Rays in 2023, because he's got that kind of makeup of being able to go deep into every game he starts.
Yep, and that efficiency is a big part of that, and it's why it made losing him so hard, because you look at losing Springs and you say, how are we going to get through these innings? And then you look to Rasmussen and you say, well, that's the way. He's a guy, he's efficient. Zach Eflin's the same way. They can be very efficient, and there we go. We got Rasmussen, we've got Eflin. McClanahan maybe he's not the most efficient pitcher ever. He has his days, but also has days where he throws 100 pitches in 5 innings. Rasmussen's going to be a lot more efficient. That's how we're going to get through this. And then he goes down too. It was just a really tough scene. And the timeline for him is obviously a little bit different because he got a little farther into the season. We probably are looking at, if he comes back at all this coming season, it would be like a bullpen towards the, maybe the middle of September, maybe into the postseason. We might see him show up for a little bit. Not super likely to get a whole lot out of him this year. It's really more of a 2025 projection for him, what he could do then. If we get him back and he wants to be, a 1 or 2 inning guy in the postseason, that'd be awesome. But that's probably the most we're going to see out of him. And I wouldn't expect much more than that personally.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that he will make an appearance at the major league level next year, but I don't really want to go much further than that. I don't know how many innings he would potentially pitch. The thing about Rasmussen coming back from injury, he used to be a big, fastball velocity guy, but he's not really that now since he's come to the Rays. He's more of a movement on his pitches guy. He still has some heat on his fastball, a bit more than Springs does, but his game is no longer about trying to blow stuff past guys like it was with the Brewers. So I'm also cautiously optimistic that when he returns, as long as he can still generate the spin and movement on his pitches, he should also be okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we'll still see a good amount of production from him when he returns full force in 2025. I would imagine we're going to see not much of a change in his effectiveness as a pitcher when he's fully back to health. I expect, and this is the same thing with Springs. I expect 2025 to be a very good year for the Rays pitching wise, because you're going to be seeing, if we're projecting this forward, right? Springs will be healthy theoretically. Rasmussen will be healthy theoretically. McClanahan would be healthy theoretically, and Boz theoretically would have had a full healthy season under his belt. That's a very strong that's a very, very, very strong rotation right there. Just those 4 guys, not even, who knows what happens with Eflin. But that's a very strong rotation right there. So 2025 is shaping up to be a really nice year for the Rays. it would be nice to get some production out of him towards the end. I don't know if what his stuff profile, I'd have to look into it a little bit more. Maybe we will throughout the season, how well his stuff would profile as like a closer type. I mean, obviously he's got excellent stuff. I don't know. And it's the closer role for the Rays is always kind of, it's a little bit always in flux. It's, Fairbanks kind of was that with his injury, situation. It's not really an injury. It's kind of a condition, I guess.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what they say. Hey, what if we have a home closer and a road closer? We've got Fairbanks is the home closer when we're in the dome, and when we're on the road, Rasmussen's the closer. I don't know. The Rays are the type of team that would try something innovative like that if they perceived a weakness and perceived a way to overcome that. So who knows? Once again, to grade Rasmussen, same thing. Maybe he got through a whole paragraph. If we're using your analogy, he got through a whole paragraph, but I think it's still pretty incomplete to grade him for this last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, what a great introduction there you did there, Drew.
Yeah.
But can you write a little more next time, please? But if the introduction was great, I'd be on course for an A. But yeah, another incomplete for old Raz.
If we're going to keep this analogy moving this way, I think our next player that we're going to review is a high schooler who's taken an AP college class, and you're like, hey, this is pretty good. It's pretty good paper right here. And that would be Zach Littell, who I don't think anybody had on, maybe Ben. I don't think anybody had on their radar. I didn't going into the season as a guy who was going to be pitched like a lot of meaningful innings as a starter for the Rays. If you go to FanGraphs, they categorize 71 of the innings that he pitched this last season as being pitched by a starting pitcher. And in those 71 innings, he pitched to a 3.41 ERA. Like, that's pretty great. We're talking about a guy who was forced into duty unexpectedly and performed about as well as you could think. I was pretty impressed with how he did. I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
Oh my gosh, Zach Littell is a story of the season in my eyes. The new one of Rasmussen and Springs. It's almost poetic in the way that the guys that were brought in as kind of relievers that weren't really working went down. So we brought in a reliever that wasn't really working, and then we stretched him into a starter that was just as effective. It was almost like a circle of life that played out in front of us. And oh my gosh, Zach Littell was unbelievable how good he was, particularly as a starter in that kind of soft contacts, pitch to pitch efficiency style. And he went deep. I think we talked about this before. He had the longest start of the season for a Ray this year. Yeah, on his day, he was outstanding in that kind of get a lot of ground balls, a lot of soft contact. And because we have good defense in the infield, that worked excellently for Littell. And I think this change of scenery has been amazing for him. I mean, something that will always stand out about any player is when you go on Savant and they're in the 100th percentile of something. Zach Littell is in the 100th percentile of walk rate. He was literally the best at limiting walks. And this has been something that the Rays have done, prioritized over the past couple seasons or so, which is, just throw strikes, dummy. Like, why don't we just throw more strikes? I love that sometimes when they're like, what are the Rays doing? They're so on the cutting edge. And they're like, we just tell our pitchers to throw strikes. Like, we just throw more strikes. And Littell is the best at throwing strikes in the big leagues. He's right there, or at least at limiting walks in the worst rate. And he's outstanding. And I think he's earned a spot in next year's rotation while we're still injured, well, for sure. And I would feel comfortable having him as a mid-rotation guy for us next year, which is just, who would have ever thought that a guy that pitched to a +5 ERA as a reliever last year is now, I'm fine with him being the 3 or 4 guy in our rotation.
Yeah. I mean, it truly was an amazing thing to watch. The July the 30th was the first real start for him where he went beyond 2-3 innings. And since that's, and from that start moving forward, his inning pitch log goes 5 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 5 2/3, 5 1/3, 6, 4 2/3, 8, 7, 4 2/3, 5 2/3, and then one inning in the postseason. I mean, amazing. He was stretched out that far and getting really, really good results in it throughout that entire stretch. Really impressive. It's actually kind of funny because his win-loss record isn't very good. It's a 3-6 win-loss record. But really, he was getting let down, in my opinion, by the offense a lot of times because he was only the most runs he allowed over that entire stretch of those games was 4. And he allowed 4 a couple times, but it's a lot of 0, 2, 0, 1, 1, 3, 0. He's not allowing a whole lot of runs despite being put in a situation where, he probably didn't expect that to start this season. He got great results. And there's really not much more you can say than that. Just exceeded expectations in every way you could possibly imagine. And I think that the question now, as you talk about moving forward, is exactly what you mentioned. How we feel about him as a starter. And right now, where would you say he slots in the rotation? Like if we, assuming we have, I guess we would assume that we have Glasnow for now. Let's assume that we have Glasnow, Eflin, Boz, Littell, and then that's where it starts to get a little bit murky. After that is like, are we talking about Bradley? Like where are we going from there? Where do you think Littell fits as far as in that rotation lineup? Where does he fit right now?
I would want Zach Littell starting game 3. And there was talk of him starting. Oh, hold on. No, I would have him on number 4 starter. Savali, I would have number 3.
Yeah, Savali. That's fair.
Because I'm a Savali believer and I'll die on that hill. But yeah, Zach Littell is number 4 starter. I'm completely fine with that. I think Bars and Bradley are going to have to fight for that 5th spot in the rotation in spring training, and I think that'll be super interesting. Maybe Bars starts as a reliever, and you start, or maybe you want Bradley to get more time in AAA because he still has some stuff to iron out. But yeah, Littell will be my 4 starter because something about Littell is you just know that you're going to get a solid outing out of him. You just know he's Mr. Consistency. He'll come in and he'll do a solid job for you. And I don't think it's hyperbolic to say, given the context of when we acquired him and when we tried to stretch him out, he may have saved the Rays season from a pitching perspective. We were once McClanahan went down, we were in a rough spot. We had Glasnow and Eflin, and Bradley was inconsistent, and Savali was inconsistent. And then Littell, he came along every 15 and was like, listen, I got you. I'm going to pitch 6 innings and I'm going to keep you in the game, which is invaluable. Sometimes this stat doesn't really get talked about because, it's a bit of a basic kind of counting stat, but quality starts is an excellent stat, I think. Quality starts just goes, did they go past, I think, the 6th, and did they give up 3 earned runs or less? And he had a ton of those. Let me tell you that, since coming to the Rays. And if he's a quality start machine, even if he's not going to win the Cy Young, he's just going to really settle down a pitching staff, and he's going to be invaluable to a bullpen that gets used a lot because that's just how the Rays operate. They use their bullpen a lot. And the more guys you have that can go, listen, we don't have to use the bullpen as much today. Invaluable. So valuable that even WAR and other metrics can't really value as highly as you might think, because that's just not how baseball works. But he's so valuable to this team. I would be more than happy with him being our 4 starter next year, and I think it's his job to lose, really.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's interesting when you talk about WAR. F-WAR, he accumulated 1.1 F-WAR over the season, which is, it's interesting when you talk about the value of a player and how much value he provided to the team. I would argue that his value to the team is greater than what his WAR says on Fangraphs or on Baseball Reference. And I'm kind of on the same page as you. I think the only thing, I'm okay with him being the number 4 starter on opening day. I think if we get to October and he's still the number 4 starter, I might be a little concerned, because that would probably tell me that Springs isn't back healthy, and that Bradley and Boz have not improved. Because I would think that maybe this is just me, but my ideal scenario is that Bradley and Boz have the kind of years to where you have to put them in the rotation, and then Littell would revert back to a 3 inning guy coming out of the bullpen, which would be incredibly valuable. But if he's still starting consistently when we get to October, I'm not like overly concerned, but I would be like, something hasn't gone the way we would have liked it to go. Somebody's not developing, somebody's hurt, somebody's not moving in the right direction. Because as good as Littell has been for us, I don't think there's a world in which he's like on the caliber of pitching staff that we have right now. I don't know that it makes sense for him to be like a member of the starting rotation when we get to next season's postseason if everybody is healthy and developing the way we want to. That being said, that probably won't happen. So having a guy like Littell on your roster is invaluable. Exactly what you're talking about. Having a guy like that available to do what you need him to do whenever you need him to do it is invaluable moving into the postseason. I talked about it during the while we were leading up to the postseason. It didn't come to fruition because we didn't stick around long enough. But I thought Littell was going to be super valuable moving into the postseason because he's a do-over. He's a free do-over anytime you want. Just we're going to restart this game. One inning, it's not working out. Glasnow goes in, it's not working out. Do over. I'm going to put Littell in and I can still get 5 innings out of my starter. Like, that's so valuable going into the postseason. And I still feel that way about him. I feel like the greatest value he offers, yes, as a starter is great, but if the pitchers that the Rays have lined up to be starters can develop to the point that he is no longer needed at the starting rotation spot, and if obviously we retain Glasnow and Eflin and Savali are still healthy and those younger guys are healthy and progressing, then if you can have him as like a do-over button whenever you want, that would be fantastically valuable to this team. And then we really go into that idea of he maybe puts up like 0.7 WAR, but we're saying no, he's worth way more than that come the end of the season.
Yeah, I like that. My only wrinkle in that is, do you think we've seen Littell's ceiling? Just because Springs was kind of on a similar kind of trajectory as Littell, where he was really bad the year before he came to the Rays. And then when he comes to the Rays, he was good, but not mind-blowing. And then he got really good in his second full season with the Rays. Do you think Littell has that extra level in him?
So the only thing that makes me say I don't know that he has another gear is when you look at his strikeout rate. It's gone down since he was in San Francisco before this, and it's been going down pretty consistently over the last couple of years. I just don't, because to me, if you're gonna like go to another gear and go to like kind of a next level, as we might say, I would kind of need to see some strikeouts because, as much as pitching to soft contact is valuable, we've seen this story before with Ryan Yarbrough, where, yeah, it's valuable. And yeah, I mean, did Ryan Yarbrough have an amazing season a couple years ago and have like a stupid amount of wins and was very valuable to this team? Yes, he was. But that's kind of his ceiling. And I don't know. And I'm willing to be surprised there. But the lack of strikeout numbers from him does lead me to believe that maybe there's a bit of a ceiling there, because if you can't miss bats like consistently, eventually like you're going to accumulate some hits, and that's what tends to happen when he has a bad game. It's when he gets killed by 1,000 cuts. Yeah, he had one game where he gave up 9 hits. Like that can happen to you when you're pitching to soft contact, because they can find holes. So your ceiling kind of becomes a little bit lower when you don't have like incredible put away stuff. Now, could he develop something? Could something change? Could one of his pitches kind of reach a new level? Sure. I just haven't seen it yet though. So for right now, if I'm, eye test and just, I don't really have any stats to back this up other than his lower K numbers. Eye test, I would say that yes, that's kind of his ceiling, but I would love to be proven wrong about that. And if I was proven wrong, then I'm willing to be, let's say this, if everybody's healthy and developing at a reasonable rate and Littell is still a starter in the rotation at the end of the season, that would tell me something's gone really right for him. So I would be pretty happy with that. I think the only way that, if people develop the way I think they will with Boz and Bradley, the only way that Littell is still a starter at the end of this season is if somebody's hurt, or if he's really developed into a way where you just can't take him out of the rotation. He's just so good, you can't take him out. I would love for that scenario to be, in play, but I just haven't seen it yet. But I'm more than willing to be proven wrong about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you make really valid points. The one pitch that I'd keep an eye on is his splitter. He's thrown it more and more year on year since 2021, and he's getting good results on it. So just keep an eye on if the Rays keep trying to push that splitter as his secondary offering. And he's been using his fastball less and less as well. So it'll be interesting to see if the Rays make any further moves on that. On his pitch mix, and see if maybe he's working on a new pitch. Maybe there's something Remy could look at, but otherwise, let's for a grade for Zach Littell. I'm going to give him an A purely because while his numbers aren't particularly, eye popping, the context of what he did and when he did it, it was extremely valuable. I have to give him an A for Zach Littell. What about you, Zach?
I completely agree. I mean, like when you look at when you're grading, someone, it's not just on their, when you're evaluating talent, like we like at my work, we just had talent evaluations like a couple weeks ago. And when you're evaluating your talent, you evaluate not only on the results that they provided, but also what your expectations were relative to their results. His results relative to my expectations are like so far in this way. It's almost if I had another A plus, I only have one. I only give out one A plus. But if I had another one to give out, he might be knocking down the door just because of what he was able to provide to this team, considering what we expected. It's an A from me. Really excited to see where he goes in the future. And if you're out there, you're looking at your wardrobe, and maybe your wardrobe is looking a little bit like Springs and Rasmussen's grades. It's a little incomplete, and you're looking for an A to add into that wardrobe to get you to like the top of the line. I've got a shop for you. It is shop.rblrsports.com, where you can get 10% off everything with promo code FLAPPY, FLAPPY. Look at that beautiful new shirt we just put up on there. I need to get one of those like tomorrow. That's a fantastic shirt. And while you're there at shop.rblrsports.com, we have something really cool that we're doing in cahoots. I'm looking for a different word, but in working with the Bolt Report, we are putting out this ugly shirt, beautiful cause, ugly t-shirt, sweater, 3 Stanley Cup celebration of the Bolts, and we're going to donate 100% of the profits to Toys for Tots. So if you're looking for a fun Christmassy lightning shirt around this Christmas season, as the NHL season is kind of getting into full swing, and you want to donate to a really awesome cause, Toys for Tots, I would recommend you go there. 100% of the profit that we make off of those shirts is going straight to Toys for Tots, an amazing cause. So while you're there, take a look at that, and if you're so inclined, make that purchase and support an awesome cause.
Turn your wardrobe into a 7.5 F wardrobe. I'm back. I had a few rough weeks, but I'm back.
Someone else is back. Someone else's are back, and that is the ones we referenced earlier in Erasmo Ramirez and Jake Devenski? That's not right. His name is
Chris
Devenski. Chris Devenski. I don't know why I've got Jake in my head because there's another Jake. We got a Jake later, but Chris Devenski and Erasmo Ramirez are back. The Rays brought them back. What's your immediate reaction to that?
Chris Devenski showed some really good stuff in the back end of the season with the Rays. He got off to a rough start, and I think that kind of soured the taste for a lot of Rays fans on Devenski because he had a couple of rough games early in his tenure, so the fans were kind of checked out. But by the end of the season, he was really putting up some good stuff. The Rays really like what he offers in terms of that changeup in particular, which is kind of everyone talks about the sweeper, but I actually think the MLB meta at the moment is all about the changeup and off speed. I think off speed is currently like the real meta game right now because everyone's honing in on crazy movement. It's now about timing and disrupting timing. And Devenski does that really, really well. He's got an A++ changeup. It's just everything working off of that still needs to develop a bit more, but the results were starting to come last year, and you can tell the Rays really value Devenski because in the playoffs, who was the first reliever brought into a game? It was Chris Devenski. He was the first guy to call out of that bullpen, and you know how the Rays work. I think at that point it was a 2-0 game.
Yeah.
So they were like, we need to keep this a 2-0 game. So it's a high leverage spot. And you know what the Rays do? They go, well, it's a high leverage spot, so we don't really care about bullpen roles. We'll bring in the guy that we think is best in high leverage in this moment, and that was Chris Devenski. So they really value him. I trust their value in him. I love his changeup, and I think he's on. I think we could project a good season out of Chris Devenski. I think he could be pitching the seventh inning quite consistently for the Rays and be, a kind of Jason and Adam type where, they'll call upon him in lots of high leverage situations. If, he's probably not going to touch the ninth very often, but a solid veteran right-handed reliever is great, especially considering all the young arms around him that he can help mentor and calm down and do some mindset coaching on. I think he'll be a good part of not just the bullpen staff, but also the culture setting that the Rays value so highly as well.
Yeah, and I think when I look at what his profile is, the thing that is the most exciting to me, and when you talk about being an effect on the pitching staff, I think this is where the Rays are looking. It's his walk percentage. Consistently very, very, very low. Last season, it was a 6.4 walk percentage, which is a little bit higher than normal for him. But like 2022, 1.5% walk percentage. So he is not walking guys. And that's very clearly been a point of emphasis for the Rays from a development perspective for their pitching is don't walk guys. Don't put guys on base. And especially as a bullpen guy, you cannot put guys on for free later in the game. And he is a guy who can control that. He is a guy who can prevent guys from getting on base for free. And that's a big deal for the Rays moving into the later innings. And so I think that's the kind of approach they want to have in their locker room, in their bullpen. And I think that that's what he provides. He provides the kind of guy who's going to be aggressively attacking the strike zone the way that the Rays want. That's what we want to see more of, and I'm excited to see what the Rays see in him. Whenever they bring someone back like this, you got to know that there's either a reason from the perspective of they need innings, which I think is the reason they brought Erasmo back. They just need somebody who can throw some innings out there, but also it could also mean that they see something that they really like. And obviously they see something they really like in Devenski. So I'm very excited to see that develop and see that continue to move forward. I'm very excited to see him not walk people. And I think when switching over to Erasmo, I think it's just that he's a guy that they know they're comfortable with him in their system, and they know they can get 2 or 3 innings out of him when they need him, which considering the pitching situation the Rays are going to be looking at, your fifth starter is probably going to need a little bit of help somewhere along the line. So having a guy like Erasmo to kind of piggyback off of whomever is that fifth starter for the Rays for most of the season, or maybe if you need a 6th starter, he could show up there and do a spot start. Having a guy like that at least available, I don't know that his role on this team will be overly lengthy. I don't know how long he's going to be a part of the team on the major league level at least, but he does provide value right now. And being in the Rays system already, it makes sense to bring him back.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just nice to have a guy there that if you need him when someone inevitably gets hurt, because someone will get hurt. It's how pitchers work. It's what they do. It's the one thing that you can guarantee every pitcher at some point will get hurt. Erasmo can step in and deliver solid innings. They know him. They like him. He seems like a really nice guy. He's probably braver than most people who ever set foot on a baseball field because mop-up guys, and he's been a mop-up guy for a good few years now. He just comes in with nothing on the line except try not to make the game get even further out of hand every single day. And he just goes out there and gets out. And I value that. And I like that he sticks around. I like that he's been a long time Ray. I know he had a couple of years away from the organization, but he sticks around, and they must value his clubhouse presence to keep bringing him back.
Yep, and someone who is not back with the Rays and who we just finally found out who the PBTL in that deal, I'm going to keep struggling to say that as long as I live, is Jake Mangum. It was the final piece of the Vidal Brujan trade, and we are looking at him. We're looking at probably a AAA guy. His statistics, his stats at AAA are fine. He hit to a 771 OPS last season, 5 home runs, 52 RBIs over 119 games played. Not a lot of power in that bat, but he does, he will get on base a decent amount. He did have only 28 walks, 91 strikeouts. Those aren't amazing numbers. But he did have 29 doubles, which is a nice thing to see. It's, he's hitting for some power, it's not necessarily home run power, but he will leg out a double. He's got some speed to him. Any thoughts on what he might bring to the organization this year?
it gives me a sign that maybe Manuel Margot may depart, or at least the Rays will try to move Manuel Margot away somewhere. I think if, I don't like to use the term actively shop, but if there was a player that I would be actively shopping, if I were the Rays front office, it would be Margot. Mangum will likely kind of not see the major league level unless there's a significant injury to someone like Jose Siri or Josh Lowe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he'll be fine. Good depth, good fielder, good speed. He's the light hitting, speedy outfielder type, which, there's a lot of those guys around, but it's good to just have an extra one. Maybe he's a pinch runner in October, or like in September, he gets some guys off his feet. It's nice to have one of those guys. I don't think Billy Hamilton's with the org anymore, so it's good to have Mangum come in and do that. So yeah, it's good. I mean, it's an extra guy out of the Bruhan and Fauché trade. And I think we did pretty well overall to get what we got out of those two guys, who are not really going to see much time with the Rays if they stuck around. And I don't think Bruhan was the guy to roll with going forward. So to get 3 players out of that is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm overall pretty happy with the outcome there. Interesting to see what he turns into. The last thing we're going to talk about today is the 2 big moves that happened. As much as we are a joke about Erasmo and Devenski, the 2 really humongous moves that happened over this last week were Juan Soto going to the Yankees for basically all their good minor league pitching, and then Shohei Ohtani signing with the Dodgers. So my question to you, Pat, which of those 2 signings is going to be more impactful to the Rays going forward?
Juan Soto to the Yankees is a sad time for Rays fans. He's Ted Williams. He is 2023's Ted Williams. He is unbelievable as a hitter. 275 average with 35 home runs last year, but his command of the strike zone is generationally good. He is so good at not taking. I mean, his savant page is just a sea of red. He is one of the best hitters in the baseball world right now. He's in his prime. He's still only 25. He's a lefty in Yankee Stadium, so you could expect even more power production from him realistically now that he's a Yankee. He is going to be so horrible to face. And I think he makes the Yankees lineup a bit deeper. However, I think there are still lots of structural flaws around the Yankees. For example, this is going to lead to Aaron Judge being the regular center fielder, is what I'm being told as of right now, which is a big, yikes, guy with injury history being made to run more. Don't love that. But his presence to the lineup is terrifying. And I think he's going to be so disgusting for the Rays to face day in, day out. And the Yankees disappointed last year. I think they had a lot of worst case scenarios. I don't think that's a performance to expect out of them next year. I think they'll be in the mix. I don't trust them to win the AL East next year, but I think they're going to be, around the playoff picture. And Juan Soto is going to be a big part of that. What do you think?
So my hot take, and this is probably a pretty hot take, is that I think Ohtani going to the Dodgers is going to be more impactful in the long run as far as the Rays go. And here's the reason why. If Ohtani had gone to Toronto, which was the big, concern, I would be concerned, not because I think it would make Toronto a World Series contender, because I still don't think so, but they would definitely make the playoffs. And then you're faced with, you could potentially match up against a team in the playoffs who have a guy on their roster who could just win the game by himself at any time. He could just win the game by himself, especially once he recovers, fully and becomes a pitcher again. You're looking at a guy who could literally just say, I'm going to win this game right now. I'm going to go 7 innings, no earned runs allowed. I'm going to drive in 4 or 5 runs, hit a 470-foot home run, and there is nothing y'all can do about it. I'm going to win this game. And in a wild card series or even a 5-game series, having a player on the opposing team who can just decide, I'm going to win this game for my team is insane. And I would want no part of that. So seeing that guy no longer in the American League at all and not having to worry about him at all. Because once he left the Angels, where I was then looking at it from this perspective, if he goes somewhere in the American League, he's going somewhere we're going to have to deal with him in the postseason. And I didn't really want to have to deal with that. I don't want to have to deal. I mean, we've seen the kind of performer he is under pressure. I mean, just go watch that last inning in the World Baseball Classic and that at bat against Trout. If you'd like to see what that would look like, I have no interest in seeing that coming up against the Rays in the postseason. When you and so I think him being in the National League is a big deal, and specifically not going to the Blue Jays, because that would be a nightmare having to deal with those guys in division. When I look at the Yankees, obviously having Soto in their lineup is really, really good. But when you look at their depth chart right now, especially the pitching side, you've got Garrett Cole, Nestor Cortez, who regressed badly, Carlos Rodon, who was, just so bad at the end of the year. And he probably won't be that bad going forward, but that was kind of comically bad. And then that's kind of it. Like, they don't really have, they traded away so much of their young starting pitching potential depth. Clark Schmidt, that's who you're looking at.
Yeah.
And
Severino left.
Severino's gone. Well, so there was somebody else that they had that was consistently pitching
Michael
for them. King was a big part of that trade. He's gone. And then you look at their lineup. Rizzo was bad last year. None of the young guys were amazing. I mean, Torres is kind of the other guy, and then you have to hope that Stanton is healthy, because then when you look at the rest of their lineup, it's like, I'm not scared by anybody. So does the Judge, Soto, I guess Torres and Stanton, quadruplet scare me a little bit? Sure. But then the rest of their lineup I am not scared one bit of anything else that's going on in their lineup. I mean, maybe Rizzo has a bounce back year, and I guess DJ LeMahieu still exists on their roster, but the way they played last year, and really, it's not just last year. They've been LeMahieu has been kind of meh for several seasons now. Stanton is either hurt or he's kind of meh. So I'm not really that scared of the Yankees. I would have been pretty scared of a Toronto team that now has access to Shohei Ohtani. That would have been really bad.
Yeah. Verdugo is an underrated get for the Yankees. I think they've got some actual people in their outfield now, but it is still a case of
you have real human beings out there. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not running the Billy McKinney, Jake Bowers, Willie Calhoun experience out there. But so I think Verdugo, Grisham, and Judge is a good outfield. Soto, I guess. No, it would be Soto, Judge, Verdugo, I suppose, would be their outfield, with Grisham being the fourth guy.
Yeah.
More athletic, more left-handed, which plays to Yankee Stadium's strength. But yeah, it's the pitching is where I'm like, they don't really have tons apart from Cole. And if Judge goes down, then the whole thing falls to bits.
Well, if Judge or Stanton go, this team, this is a star. You're relying heavily on Soto, Judge, and Cole to carry you. And if any of those guys get hurt, you are in big trouble. You're in really big trouble. You don't really have a whole lot of options. You're struggling if that happens. So to me, I'm looking at Ohtani's move as being more impactful long-term, mostly because he didn't go to an American League team. Yeah. As a side note, I'm joked about this on Twitter, that now that he's moved to the National League, we can begin the 2025 Josh Lowe for MVP campaign. And I'm kind of joking, kind of not, but also it actually does open up the possibility for a Ray to potentially win the MVP in the next 10-ish years or so, which is nice. It actually could happen, because that was something that I think I had kind of just let go of the idea that a Ray's going to win an MVP anytime soon, because it had to go through Ohtani. I'm just whatever, just forget it. It's never going to happen. Now it can actually happen. Somebody could potentially win the MVP, because they don't have to go through Ohtani anymore.
Who do you think would be the first Ray to win an MVP, if there is one that exists?
So the reason why I joked about Josh Lowe potentially winning the MVP is because he is kind of he's kind of a five-tool player a little bit. He plays pretty good defense. He's not amazing defense, but he plays pretty good defense. He's an excellent base stealer. He hits for power, and he can hit for some average as well. He kind of does it all. So if he just plays out of his shoes one year, I could see it. The other guy, if he can stay healthy, slamming my fist on wood over here, is Brandon Lau, because he can put up the gaudy power numbers that are often associated with an MVP campaign. If he can, parlay like a 260, 270 batting average and like 55 bombs or something into one season where maybe Judge has kind of a meh year, and Brandon Lau does play pretty good defense at second base, that I do think I could see. So obviously another player that I think could definitely win an MVP, who we do not believe will be available for us going forward. But if we take that person out of it, I think that either of the lows have a decent, maybe Paredes too. He'd have to have a really good, I don't know that he has the power to do what you'd need to do to win an MVP, but you never know. It's possible. I think that Brandon Lau does have the power in his bat to do that. So I think if he stays healthy for a full year, he could. And Josh Lowe, I think, as he continues to develop, who knows? Obviously, Cam Minero has a chance too, like down the line. Like, I think if he continues to develop, he's got a chance too. But I'm going to say Josh Lowe would be my bet right now, just because he could kind of do what Acuna has done, where he's putting together a whole package of value. Like he could spit out like a 5 or 6 WAR season, like maybe a 6 or a 7 WAR season, because of the value he's going to bring like throughout the game, when he's stealing bases and hitting for power and hitting for average and providing value on defense. He can do the whole thing. Whereas a guy like Brandon Lau is going to be relying a lot on his power. Same thing with like a guy like Cam Minero. Unless he really develops at shortstop, he's kind of relying on his power and his hitting ability to create his value.
Yeah, hear me out. And I know this is like a cardinal sin and people will get cross at me for being bullish on a prospect. Xavier Isaac. I think Xavier Isaac, like the way he's transformed his body, he's now like, he's jacked now. He used to be like a big boy, but now he's like ripped out of his mind. I saw him take some swings at Driveline, and I'm like, okay, I could see him putting up like a Vladdy kind of season in 2021. When if Ohtani didn't exist, he would have won the MVP. Yeah. So I'm like, maybe Xavier Isaac. But again, he's got a long way to go. He needs to get to the majors and then succeed at the majors. But I'm just looking at him and I'm like, I see Prince Fielder and Vlad Guerrero Jr. in you. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I could totally see that. And it is definitely frustrating, because I would have a very easy answer for you if we had a certain player available, but he's not. So we're just gonna let it pass. Do you have any other thoughts relating to this whole Juan Soto Ohtani situation that's been going on?
I'm just I've been doing some reflecting, and I think me and Ohtani, I've discovered that me and Ohtani have a lot in common, actually. Which has made me feel better about my own self-esteem, which is I too love dogs and cats very much. I would sign immediately with any team that offered me $700 million. And I am not on any flights to Toronto anytime soon. I'm glad that nobody was on a flight to Toronto. Oh my gosh. If you do see you're a Blue Jays fan, I would say give him a hug, but don't.
Yeah, no, that is a tough scene up there in Toronto. If you'd like to, and being a Florida Gators fan, my side of Twitter is kind of on fire right now. Just for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Is we're on fire. So if you're like me and you needed to go feel better about yourself, I just scooted over to Blue Jays Twitter and I felt better immediately. So that's my recommendation to you, because they are on fire. But that's our show today, guys. Thank you for continuing to being part of what we're building here at RBLR Sports. Like, subscribe, continue to share us out there to all your friends who you think might be interested in what we're doing here, what we're building here. Give a like, give a watch to some of the other shows in our network that are also providing just awesome content. And thank you guys for being a part of what we're doing every single week. And we are moving on through the off season, getting back to the regular season sooner than later, hopefully. And for now, raise up.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.